Yes.
Yeah, I don't exactly have a question, but if it's okay, can I make a comment about how this approach is helping me?
Please.
So I grew up in a toxic group and I kind of left when I was a teenager and I realised recently that it's hurt me. And my dad's still in the group and he's kind of understanding how it's hurt me. And I used to get big long discussions with him about doctrine and we just go into cult mode and say, well, in the model, we would answer this question by saying this and go on and on. And a few months ago, I asked him how he felt. And he started talking. I mean, no one in this group had ever asked him how he felt. No one talks about their feelings because they have to project their positive image of peace and light and blah, blah, blah all the time.
Right.
I don't think anyone's ever asked him how he felt. And he started talking about guilt and control. And it was like talking to a real person instead of talking to the person blabbering on about what their knowledge and what their model is. And a couple of weeks later, he walked out of his meditation group for the first time in 20 years and said that he felt like he was being controlled. So thank you, it really helps.
Bravo to you. Yeah. I started with my own story as the metaphor, but I've seen it 1,000 times at least in 36 years, that if you have rapport and trust with the person and just ask those gentle questions about what are you experiencing and how do you feel and what do you think, they'll tell you what they're missing or what's blocking them. You know, they want to be out. Being in a cult sucks. It's just that they don't produce what they promise. If they did, it wouldn't be a destructive cult. You raise a point. I'm going to shift for 1 second about communication technique. So we're a hypothetical scenario where the cult member is angrily attacking the mother or father and saying, "Do you think I'm in a cult, yes or no?" So my recommendation to that communication is, first of all, and always, you reflect back what you just heard. In other words, not in a parroting way, but wow, I can see you're really angry and upset.
Yes, but do you believe that it's a cult or not?
Well, first of all, I want to reassure you that I believe you're an adult and you're intelligent and I respect you. And if you tell me that it's not a cult, I'm going to believe you. But I also need to be honest and tell you there's a part of me that is a little concerned and scared and isn't sure. That's how I would recommend. Because you're rapport and trusting both parts, the cult identity and the real identity. You don't want to just do one or the other, because you don't want to risk the cult identity just writing you out forever. So you go in that circumstance with the strong yes. If you say it's not, then it's not, because I trust you and you're smart. But I also got to level with you. There's a part of me that's just has a bad feeling, or I'm just not sure. Sorry. But even in that scenario, you're giving validity to the part in them that's worried and has doubts, too. Who hasn't asked the question? Yes?
The actual situation of the true family is disastrous, as sons of moon are suing each other and so on. What are the Moonists thinking about it?
So when you say the true family is using loaded language of my former cult, because they call themselves the true family, it's called Moonies in my worldview now. So what do I think about the fact that Moon is senile and his sons are fighting for the empire? Happy. I want to keep the focus on this release. Yes, Carl.
Okay, we understand that cult members have thought stopping, program for thought stopping and program for feeling stopping. Can you talk a little bit more about and give us practical examples of the point of view technique that you were first talked about in the beginning, where as we're working with them?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Sorry.
You talked about how in your own story that your father, for just that split second got you to actually think about his point of view.
Yeah.
And there's a place when we're working with ex-members or even people who are still in the group through an
Right.
intervention where they're blocked with that, but,
Okay, I'll answer your question, but I first want to point out, I just did a technique,
okay.
a communication technique, where somebody asks you a question, you may have heard it, you may not. If you did hear it, but you're stalling for time to think about what it is, you go, could you repeat that, please? But then you're also leaning in and showing interest, because body language is huge. I'm thinking about one parent who, again, coaching, and so she said, well, I told my daughter that the group is great. I said, okay, model it for me. I'm your daughter, tell me. I think the group is great. And I said, excuse me, Carolyn, let's go to a mirror. Pretend she's there and answer. And she saw her shaking her head no, and she's totally oblivious. Totally oblivious of the nonverbals, because she was such an honest person. She didn't know how to do it. And so there's learning. There's real rehearsal and learning. Okay, so when to use the step into other people's shoes technique, you need to have rapport and trust. The more rapport and trust you have, the better. And what I always like to recommend people do is, before you are asking the person to do the technique, you do it over and over and over again. So hang on a second, let me put myself into your shoes. Teach me how to look from there. I get it. So what you're saying is, and what you're feeling is this, and they're going, right, exactly. So with that kind of relationship established, then you can say, those poor folks who sold everything, because the world is coming to an end on May 21st, and when they were asked, what do you do on May 22nd if you're not raptured? They say, I have to have faith that it's going to happen. How do you think they're feeling right now? Boy, I can just imagine. It must be pretty tough, do you think? And you're just doing an open-ended modeling thing and inviting them to try to think. What if, and by the way, the Moonies say the end of the world is 2013. I don't remember what month and date. Let's say March 12th or something. Don't quote me on that, but it's definitely 2013. But then again, when I was in the Moonies, it was 74, it was 77. It's always 3 years off. Because you could get people to work really hard for 3 years, if it's only 3 years. And then they just keep shifting it. Who hasn't asked the question yet? Yes?
Could you speak a little bit, thanks for your presentation.
Thanks for coming.
Can you speak up a little bit about connections between the ideology or philosophy of a cultic group and the kind of cultic processes that then emanate from that philosophy and the cultic process, and then which lead to cultic behavior and the links between them?
Well, I mean, just in general, did anyone hear the question? Talk about the cultic beliefs that then direct to the cultic behaviors.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote about it in both my books, We have the ultimate truth. It's, black and white, us versus them, good versus evil. What you think doesn't matter. It's always the group will is more important. Always living in the future, because the world's going to be different then. So you can sacrifice now. Redefining the past, changing your memories of the past. I'm trying to think in a modeling kind of way, so then you can fit any particular situation, family situation or group situation, and then again, figure out what are the inherent strengths and weaknesses within that particular group. And for me, I want to know the family history. I want to have an identity creation in my mind of who the person was before they got into the group. And I want to have a model of what a good member thinks like and what words they use and their behaviors. I want to try to meet former members and hear from them. And then I want to just try to keep stepping into that person's shoes and imagine what experience could I have that would move me closer to freedom of mind. Well, it might be someone asking me how I feel, or it might, when I was in the Moonies and I was fundraising and I was hot and sweaty, and somebody said, "You look really hot and sweaty. Can I buy you a drink? Can I get you an orange juice?" It was a powerful intervention because I was indoctrinated to believe the outside world was evil. Satan was everywhere, and this person was showing an act of kindness and compassion. That helped. The converse was people saying, "Damn, Mooney," and throwing beer cans at me or punching me. That made me a better Mooney. The persecution reinforced the cult identity. The acts of kindness, the thoughtfulness. I mean, it's literally, when you see a cult member, whether they're coming to your door or whatever, if you have even a few minutes to connect with them as a human being and ask their name. How old are they? How are you feeling right now?
Dave, I was thinking more about amplifying what is in the philosophy. You know, if it's in the philosophy that people are living in the material world and there's people living in the spiritual world and there's a bipolar dichotomy there, and it diminishes the influence of people who are living in the material world because they are some way diminished.
Okay, so do you want to come
People
up?
living in the spiritual world are elevated. So the influence of the parents is diminished because of their perception
Yeah,
of the world.
yes, it's
This is how it
diminished.
works. What I'm getting at is, this is how it's actualized. Because I've read your two books, and I think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. But what I'm trying to say is, I think for a lot of people, to make the connection between the philosophy and what the people are telling, and how it's actualized in an everyday reality, from an anthropological, ethnographic sense.
What's the point? Why do you want to do that? You want to help your
Reason
loved
I want
one,
to do
or
it,
you want
Because I
to?
think people who are concerned about peoples in groups will much easier understand. It's all right to talk about mind control and strategic intervention and stuff, but unless you can understand the everyday social interactions and how the philosophies affect those everyday social interactions.
Okay, I agree. I agree. You need to understand what the cult model of reality is. You need to know what the beliefs are. That's what I was saying. You should go to the group, go to the sessions, talk to former members. Again, don't just go. Talk to former members, get prepped. Read their material on the internet, look at their videos. You need to know their mindset. And if it's a group, an Eastern group that says it's the material world, then obviously you're not going to approach your loved one and say, "When are you getting a job?" You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that, right? Who hasn't asked a question?
Just going back to Anne's new influence.
Please.
Because we are thinking of helping people to come back to their self, to be themselves. But what happens when the people enter in those groups and when they are very young? You know, sometimes they are even 10 years old in some cases, and sometimes
Or born into
they go from college into
Right. So did everyone hear the question? What do you do if it's a child who gets into a group, or if you're born into a group? They need a very specialized form of therapy, in my opinion.
Yeah, identity.
And essentially, from a theoretical point of view, as you've heard me say, I believe everyone's born with an authentic self. They don't have a self in the developmental Ericksonian sense of the word. However, they have been in growing up and seeing other people potentially who have varying selves. But essentially what I say to my second generation and more people is, how are you doing right now? I start with the here and now. Are you sleeping? Do you have a safe place to live? Are you eating properly? Are you exercising? And I emphasize we all need to live in the here and now. Everything else is a thought construct of what the future is or the past. So I get them to become very aware of their body and what they feel in their body and how to feed their body, and very Maslow-oriented, safety and security issues first. If they're constantly in touch with cult members who are trying to suck them back in, I have to explain to them that they have to be in touch with their feelings and where they are right now and ask, if I do this, what is the consequence? Is it gonna help me, or is it gonna make me feel crappy? Or is it gonna make me feel guilty? And I give them on baby steps how to be human, like how to navigate. And we work towards a healthy construction of self. What does it mean to be yourself? So, for example, I might ask the person, think of a time when you feel like you're most you. And then a long silence. And even if they were born in a cult, I get answers like, when I'm painting, or when I'm dancing, or when I'm playing the harmonica, or when I'm walking in the woods, or when I am helping somebody else. So you look for these reference points of humanity where they can self-identify. That's me. You know, I like honesty, or I like to do X behavior, or Y behavior. And it's a process of constructing self in the here and now. It's a much longer answer. Maybe sometime I'll do a workshop for people born in mind control groups and environments. But you literally need to start there, and then you need to encourage them to, this is my theory, my belief, you need to help them create a new father and mother introject that's healthy and normal, that is providing safety, is providing security, is praising, encouraging, giving proximal learning experiences. And I literally teach people to, okay, the past is historical fact. It's really what happened. You know, you were beaten, tortured, raped, and kept away from your family in all normalcy. But from this is me as a therapist, what one needs to do is ask them to invent an alternate default track for their past that has healthy experiences in it. So for the ex-Jehovah's Witness, it's having the birthday parties, or going into other churches and playing, saluting, the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever. But you know that it's not real in the sense of historical, but it's real in the sense of emotional and psychological. So it's a radical reconstruction of self. However, there is that core, unique essence spark that wants that, and it's gonna be food for the start. They're gonna love this. And the more people that they can have in their life who are further along the healing journey of reconstructing themselves and getting married and getting a PhD and writing books, et cetera, the more mentoring can happen, the more, positive influences can happen that's going to motivate them to get well. But I really, in my gut, resist those people who say they're permanently damaged, they can never recover. I just don't believe that. I think human beings are incredibly resourceful. Just amazingly resourceful. I'm getting assigned 10 minutes left. I just want to tell you one personal thing. I recently read memoirs from someone I'm very close with who survived the Holocaust. He's a man that I've known since 1980. We never talked about his experiences. We never shared them. He went on to get a doctorate from a major university, become chairman of the department, make world-level contributions in the field of science, raise a whole family who all of his children made extraordinary contributions. And getting emotional. What he lived through and survived in Poland takes what most people who've suffered in cults, and it just makes it so small. And I just feel like if you could do what he did, just that much easier for us. Wow, you know, yes, it sucked. Yes, we were abused, but man, what he had to live through and endure, watching his family murdered. Sometimes if you want to hear some of the stories, I don't want to say it publicly, but the point is if we have a model like that, of that level of extreme brainwashing and abuse, and he didn't have a life.
But nevertheless, I think one shouldn't not underscore that there is murder, soul murder also in certain cases, and some cases are just like concentration camps.
I'm
And the
not,
torture,
no,
well, there is a degree of torture.
I agree.
And precisely mentioning it in the case of young people, because they don't have this.
I'm not mean, my
experience.
intention was not to minimize, and if I came across that way, I apologize.
I don't.
I'm trying to contextualize and just say for me personally,
But in parallel, it's sort of, it's interesting in the sense, not all comparing, because anyway, the suffering is uncomparable to mental.
right, everyone has their own story and
Because
their
the
own
resilience
journey.
also might be different in some cases.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to compare the phenomenon of destructive phenomenon. In both cases, it's a destruction of human.
Exactly.
What is absolutely should be as
Agreed.
unrelatable in the human being.
Agreed.
So defense of the human being as such.
I agree. So let me just say, we're running out of time. I want to ask whoever hasn't had a chance to talk, but I want to just come back to the point that I wasn't sure I was clear on, because I got emotional or whatever. The point is to have heroes to aspire to. And on that note, I want to do a plug for a program and a website called heroicimagination.org. Write it down, please, heroicimagination.org. It's my mentor, Phil Zimbardo's project. He's modeling how to make everyday people be heroic. And it's a curriculum to teach young people. He's put up video clips, basically clips that I use in my prep meetings and in my interventions of the Ash Conformity Study, the Milgram Obedience Study, Stanford Prison Study, old candy cameras. In other words, explaining what social psychology is all about and just how vulnerable human beings are to influence. Conformity influence, influence of authority figures, the whole, it creates the foundation for understanding these extreme groups. And it's a fantastic resource, and I truly believe it could be useful for a whole ton of people in mind control groups, because it's not attacking a group. It's just saying, let's look at people who've been heroic. How did they do what they did? What are the elements? And plus it's a great basis for dialogue. So it's wonderful. Who hasn't asked a question? I'll go back.
This is kind of segueing into the other question about children coming very early into cults. I'm at the other end of the spectrum. We got out of the cult after a quarter of a century. We still have friends in the cult. We really wonder if we're doing them a favor sometimes to get them out. We've run several people out and seen both positive and negative results, particularly for couples that have been married and in the cult and frozen for 25 years. We've seen a lot of marriages just crumble when they come out. Same with families when they come out. The kids suddenly hate the parents. They're filled with rage. The parents split. So, I mean, it's almost like you're playing God and saying, should we help them or should we just let them stay there? And my wife in particular, who's a minister, is just suffering, trying, her best friend is still in there, and she doesn't dare to try and do anything.
Yeah, I think I get the point. Did everyone hear the question? You said it spoke loudly enough. So let me it's a really good point, and I really want to emphasize this. In my model, the way I think, I don't get people out of cults. I'm not. I'm empowering people to think for themselves and make their own decisions. So here's the plate, here's the food. If you don't want to eat it, that's fine. they're watching me eat it, and I'm going, yum, yum, yum. But I'm not imposing my model of reality on people, or telling them they have to believe what I believe, or they have to accept social psychology knowledge or not. And therefore, I'm not playing God. I'm just being a conscientious citizen who's been on the dark side, got help to come out here, and I'm saying, hey, it's light out here. There's grass, and there's trees, and there's rivers, and trying to model that it is better. And people need to do their own work, and people have their own spiritual journeys, and whether or not part of that decision as they are reevaluating things is, you know what, I married my wife in the group because of the leader assigned her, and I don't really love her, and therefore I think I don't want to be married to her anymore. That's that person's journey. And so I really, I honor people. People have a right to believe stupid things or be in destructive groups as long as they know what they're involved with. So even at the point that I'm doing an intervention, I tell people, it's up to you. If you want to go back, this is about giving you the tools and understanding, but it's your life and you've got to decide how you want to live your life. And because I'm not trying to take them out, there's no resistance, or much less resistance to, oh, you're trying to make me do this or that. No. Who hasn't asked a question? Yeah, you can roll on.
It's a pretty quick one. I actually wondered what the range of time was for you to implement the process. What have you seen in terms of how long you might stay engaged with a family in this process?
How long do I stay engaged? So I get the range of people calling me who believe their loved one is about to go to a destructive group workshop and want to find out what to say or what to do. And I say, don't say it's a cult, like screaming and yelling. Probably go with them, but get coaching first. To the people who call me and, I don't know, I'm about to die and I haven't talked to my daughter in 25 years and I'm, finalizing my will and they don't want to leave the money to the cult and what do I do? What happened 25 years ago? Oh, I tried to deprogram her. Have you ever apologized? No. Why would I apologize? I was doing what I thought was best. And then I go into my spiel about how you need to have rapport and trust first. And if you did something that alienated them, apologize and say, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have done it. If I knew it was going to cause an alienation for 25 years, I never would have, tried to do it. And so the point is every case is unique. I try to resolve a case even if it's been going on for 20 years. I try to finish it within a year. But I will not do an intervention just because the family says, I want an intervention, and they're coming home next month. Can you be there? No, I don't do that. I'll only do an intervention if we all feel, meaning the family and myself, feel like there's better than an 80 or 90% chance that it's going to be a positive thing in the family and for the person. Again, I don't frame it as getting the person out. I get it in terms of creating a context of communication, of empowerment. And I've had I have a lot of great stories of lots of diverse situations, and I try to be as creative as possible. And sometimes things just happen synchronistically. Someone asks me about a particular group, and the week before, some ex-member of that group emails me and says, hey, if you ever need any help with this group, let me know. And it's like, that's interesting. So I talk with them and meet with them and hear what they have to say. Maybe they knew the person in the group, and that person could approach the person directly without the family being involved through the internet or something. Who knows? You can be creative. You can be, now with the internet, there's all kinds of options that didn't exist before. Who else didn't ask the question? We're wrapping up. Yes?
I have a question regarding ex-members that have websites. I'm an ex-member of a sort of cultish group. And sometimes I receive mails from members of the group, not only to say that I haven't understood anything,
Right.
but they also have questions. And that is pretty special because in this group, any ex-member who is publicly critical about the group is the victim of the devil.
Yeah, normal.
And so sometimes I don't know exactly how to answer because I answer them what they're asking. If they say something that I agree is good about the group, because there are some good things,
Yeah.
I agree with them.
Yeah, exactly.
I give some personal testimony of things I've seen.
Right.
But generally, these exchanges end very badly. So I don't know.
So I think that any communication with the outside world, particularly former members, is a very big green light, big healthy sign. I would encourage people to go slow. Don't try to do the knockout punch, but just the more that members see ex-members who are happy and fulfilled and together, like we are an intervention just by our existence. And if they see that, oh, their life didn't fall apart, you didn't go and say, like what's up with that? And I always like to try to go into personal stories. I remember when this happened, did anything like that happen with you? Or, you know, I'm really glad that you're talking to me. When I was in the group, I wouldn't have been so brave. But it shows that you are thinking for yourself. And I want to salute that. That's great. Anytime you have a question, keep coming back. If I don't have the answer, I'll try to find someone who does have the answer. But the key is always with people who are still in the group, not attacking the group. I mean, if they're asking you questions about the group, that's different. But try to educate them about social psychology and other groups first, because they'll be able to take it better. I got hundreds of letters when this first came out from people who were in the Jehovah's Witnesses. And at the time, I didn't think they were a mind control group. And I was like struck by how many people were writing me. And they were like, and I said, why, are they a cult? And they're like, oh my God, they underlined the entire book. Well, they could read it because there's not a word in it about Jehovah's Witnesses. It's all about the Moonies. So it wasn't forbidden literature. I mean, actually, in the paperback, I did add, you know, something in the appendix, so I tell people rip out that page before you get into it. But it's because everyone knows the Moonies are a cult. And so it's helped people get out of all different types of groups because it's so clear. The Moonies are the guy with the crown and the mass weddings. You know, who marries a stranger but a colleague? That's obvious. So it becomes a metaphor or a window into the phenomenon. So, yeah.
I guess that's an interesting point too, because I mean, having been in a cult myself, and you even know this, you think that your group is the maximum of everything, but you do look at all these other groups. Look at funny clothes those guys wear.
Yeah.
Look at these odd things. You know? So if you can create a conversation and then you start, wait a minute, they do that.
Exactly.
But they call it something different. But
That's a key to the whole strategic
topic
approach.
without focusing it on
Right.
the group the person's in. But hey, look at those guys over there. What do you think?
Yeah, can you imagine in a group that tells you can't have a blood transfusion if you get in a car accident, and they'll pray that it's better for your child to die than to give them a blood transfusion? And that there's nowhere in the Bible, even though they keep saying it's in the Bible. Can you believe that parents would watch their own loved ones bleed to death? I've counseled people who watch their loved ones bleed to death. You know, but it's so powerful for people in other groups to go, whoa, those people are really believers. And then to hear about the false prophecies of the end of the world and the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a great group to use as an example to get people out of a million other Bible cults, really. But if they're in the Jehovah's Witnesses, then the Moonies are perfect. Talk about the Moonies, how weird they are. So I think we're wrapping up. I want to thank you all. Freedom of mind. joined, and I actually started Twittering. It's @cultexpert, and I started blogging. I've been told I should blog for years. I started a blog. So hopefully we can raise more awareness. Thanks very much.
Thanks.